What you're about to see will destroy everything you thought you knew about music law. The Weeknd, Abel Tesfaye, walked into federal court thinking it was just another sampling dispute. But Judge Neil Gorsuch was about to make the biggest mistake of his judicial career. In exactly 60 seconds, you'll witness the moment that a Grammy-winning superstar revealed a secret so shocking that it ended a federal judge's reputation forever. "Your Honor," Abel said, his voice carrying the same hypnotic power that had captivated 100 million fans worldwide. "Before you rule on music sampling, let me explain why your understanding of fair use doctrine violates the First Amendment and constitutional creative expression." What happened next didn't just shock the courtroom. It rewrote music law forever and proved that sometimes the most devastating legal weapons come from the most unexpected places. If you think you know The Weeknd, you're about to discover his most dangerous secret. Important note: this is completely fictional entertainment created for educational purposes only. Gorsuch's fatal assumption. Judge Neil Gorsuch sat behind his federal bench like a fortress of legal tradition. At 56, this Supreme Court justice had built his career on originalist constitutional interpretation and strict adherence to copyright law. A Columbia Law graduate with an Oxford doctorate, Gorsuch represented everything elite about American jurisprudence. His fatal flaw? The absolute certainty that entertainment celebrities were legal lightweights playing in a world they couldn't comprehend. That morning, reviewing the Weeknd sampling case, Gorsuch had already decided the outcome. Another artist trying to steal copyrighted music, another easy victory for intellectual property protection. He had no idea he was about to face a constitutional scholar who could dismantle his legal reasoning with surgical precision. The Weeknd's hidden transformation. The world knew Abel Tesfaye as The Weeknd, the mysterious Canadian artist whose dark, hypnotic sound had revolutionized modern R&B. From underground mixtapes to Grammy dominance, from blinding lights breaking Billboard records to headlining Super Bowl halftime, Abel had conquered every peak of musical success. But what his 100 million fans didn't know was the obsession that had consumed Abel since 2018. Frustrated by constant sampling disputes and inspired by artists losing their creative rights, Abel had begun what he privately called Project Justice, an intensive study of music law that would rival any law school education. Every sample tells a story, he had confided to his producer, Ahmad Balsh, during a late Toronto studio session. But the legal system doesn't understand the cultural DNA of music creation. If I'm going to protect my art and help other artists, I need to master the law that controls our creativity. Working secretly with music law professors from Berkeley and NYU, Abel had spent 5 years studying copyright constitutional theory, fair use doctrine, and the intersection of creative expression with legal protection. He had completed advanced coursework in intellectual property law and constitutional interpretation. By 2023, The Weeknd wasn't just defending a sampling case. He had transformed into a constitutional legal scholar with devastating expertise in the very laws that governed his industry. The devastating setup. The San Francisco federal courthouse buzzed with unusual energy. This wasn't typical music industry litigation. The Weeknd himself was presenting constitutional arguments, a decision that had stunned entertainment law experts. Gorsuch reviewed his notes with smug confidence. The case seemed straightforward. Abel had sampled elements from Nocturnal Transmission by electronic artist Clara Morrison without proper clearance. Morrison's estate claimed copyright infringement, standard penalty, massive damages, and injunction. "Mr. Tesfaye," Gorsuch began, his tone dripping with judicial condescension, "this court recognizes your commercial success in popular music. However, copyright law exists to protect creators from theft, not to provide legal gymnastics for artists who take without permission. Are you prepared to accept responsibility for clear copyright infringement?" The question hung in the air like a trap. Gorsuch expected capitulation, settlement discussion, or celebrity legal theater. Instead, Abel stood with the quiet confidence of someone holding a nuclear weapon. The first explosion. "Your Honor, I appreciate your concern about protecting creators. But before we discuss this specific case, I need to address a fundamental constitutional error in your analysis that violates both fair use doctrine and First Amendment creative protection." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. This wasn't celebrity legal posturing. This was constitutional challenge. The Supreme Court's decision in Campbell v. Cuff Rose Music established that fair use analysis must consider transformative purpose, not just commercial benefit. When artists build upon existing musical elements to create new expressive meaning, they engage in constitutionally protected transformative expression. Gorsuch's confident expression flickered. That was actual legal analysis, not entertainment industry rhetoric. Moreover, Abel continued, your presumption that sampling constitutes theft fundamentally misunderstands the constitutional purpose of copyright law, which exists to promote creative expression, not to create absolute property rights that stifle cultural dialogue. The constitutional bombshell. "Mr. Tesfaye," Gorsuch interrupted, "while you've clearly studied some basic copyright concepts, this court deals with established legal precedent, not theoretical arguments about cultural dialogue." Abel smiled, the same enigmatic expression that had captivated millions of fans. But now it carried something more dangerous: absolute legal confidence. "Your Honor, let me address the constitutional framework you're overlooking. The Copyright Clause grants Congress power to promote the progress of useful arts by securing exclusive rights for limited times. When copyright enforcement prevents transformative creative expression, it exceeds constitutional bounds." He pulled out a comprehensive legal brief that made Gorsuch's eyes widen. "I've prepared a complete analysis of how your fair use interpretation violates constitutional creative protection. The court's decision in Eldred v. Ashcroft established that copyright law receives constitutional deference only when it serves the constitutional purpose of promoting creative expression, the devastating legal mastery. Furthermore," Abel continued, "my sampling of nocturnal transmission constitutes transformative fair use under the four-factor analysis established in Harper & Row Publishers v. Nation Enterprises. Let me demonstrate why each factor supports constitutional protection." Gorsuch leaned forward, no longer dismissive but genuinely concerned. He was facing real legal expertise. Factor 1. Purpose and character of use. My sampling transforms Morrison's ambient electronic texture into a commentary on urban isolation and emotional disconnection. This constitutes criticism and comment protected under fair use. Factor 2. Nature of copyrighted work. Morrison's piece was published electronic music, not unpublished creative expression deserving heightened protection. Factor 3. Amount and substantiality. I used 3.7 seconds of ambient texture from a 4-minute composition, quantitatively minimal and qualitatively non-essential to Morrison's expressive purpose. Factor 4. Effect on market value. My transformative use in a completely different musical context creates no market substitution for Morrison's original work. The room had gone completely silent. This wasn't celebrity legal theater. This was constitutional scholarship of the highest level. Gorsuch's desperate counterattack. "Mr. Tesfaye," Gorsuch said, "your analysis ignores the fundamental principle that copyright protects creators' economic interests. Artists cannot simply declare their use transformative to avoid paying for copyrighted material." Abel had been waiting for exactly this argument. His response would destroy not just Gorsuch's legal reasoning, but his entire approach to copyright constitutional law. "Your Honor, that argument demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding of constitutional copyright theory that the Supreme Court rejected in Sony Corporation versus Universal City Studios." He paused to let that constitutional bombshell sink in. The Betamax decision established that copyright law must accommodate new forms of creative expression even when they compete with existing commercial models. Justice Stevens explicitly rejected the argument that copyright exists primarily to protect economic interests rather than promote creative expression. The constitutional masterclass. Moreover, Abel continued, your economic-focused interpretation violates the constitutional balance between copyright protection and First Amendment creative rights established in Golan versus Holder. Gorsuch was now taking frantic notes, realizing he faced genuine constitutional expertise. The court emphasized that copyright law operates as an engine of free expression. When copyright enforcement stifles rather than promotes creative expression, it exceeds constitutional bounds. My transformative sampling serves exactly the constitutional purpose that copyright law was designed to promote. Abel then delivered his devastating conclusion. Your Honor, the constitutional framework requires that fair use analysis prioritize transformative creative expression over commercial considerations. When courts focus primarily on economic impact rather than expressive transformation, they violate both fair use doctrine and First Amendment creative protection. The final constitutional strike. Additionally, Abel said, I need to address the broader constitutional issue that your approach raises. The Supreme Court's decision in Iancu versus Brunetti established that government cannot restrict creative expression based on its commercial impact or cultural effects. When applied to copyright fair use analysis, this means courts cannot reject transformative use claims simply because they compete economically with existing copyrighted works. The Constitution requires protecting creative expression even when it disrupts established commercial arrangements. Gorsuch sat in stunned silence. The Grammy-winning artist before him had just delivered a constitutional analysis that would impress Supreme Court clerks. Gorsuch's total surrender. Mr. Tesfaye, Judge Gorsuch said, his voice completely transformed from confident dismissal to genuine respect. I must acknowledge that your constitutional analysis has been extraordinary. You've presented fair use arguments that demonstrate legal expertise I did not anticipate. Thank you, Your Honor. I hope this case demonstrates that constitutional creative rights deserve protection regardless of who advocates for them. The First Amendment belongs to all artists, not just those with traditional legal credentials. The Madam decision. Given your comprehensive constitutional analysis, Gorsuch continued, this court finds that your sampling constitutes transformative fair use, protected under both copyright doctrine and First Amendment creative expression. Your use of Morrison's work serves the exact constitutional purpose that fair use was designed to protect. The artist's triumph. Moreover, Gorsuch added, your analysis has convinced this court that fair use evaluation must prioritize constitutional creative protection over purely economic considerations. This represents an important clarification of fair use doctrine that will benefit all creators. Abel nodded with quiet satisfaction. This case was never about avoiding payment to creators. It was about ensuring that copyright law serves its constitutional purpose of promoting creative expression rather than stifling cultural dialogue. Revolutionary legal precedent. The Weeknd versus Morrison. A state decision sent shockwaves through both entertainment and legal communities. Law schools immediately began studying Abel's constitutional arguments in their intellectual property courses. The case became required reading for fair use doctrine and constitutional creative rights. For the music industry, the decision established crucial precedents protecting transformative artistic expression while respecting legitimate creative rights. Artists gained new constitutional protections for building upon existing cultural elements, cultural transformation. The Weeknd case taught me that constitutional expertise can emerge from artistic experience, Judge Gorsuch later reflected. Mr. Tesfaye's analysis enhanced rather than undermined my understanding of constitutional creative protection. For Abel, the victory represented validation of years of legal study. Legal scholars and constitutional experts recognized him as a serious voice for artistic constitutional rights. The hidden message. Most importantly, the case demonstrated that constitutional law belongs to all Americans who engage with creative expression. Abel Tesfaye had proven that artistic understanding combined with rigorous legal scholarship could challenge the most established legal. If you found this incredible fictional story of musical constitutional courage and hidden legal brilliance mind-blowing, Smash that like button and subscribe for more shocking tales of celebrities with secret legal genius. Hit that notification bell so you never miss these insane stories of hidden brilliance destroying powerful authorities. What did you think of the Weeknd's secret constitutional expertise? Drop your thoughts below and let me know which celebrity legal genius you want to see next. Reminder: this is entirely fictional entertainment created for educational purposes only.